Supply and demand. Supply and demand is about markets and prices, right? We live in this world full of markets and prices, stock markets, food markets, fish markets, you name it. I guess food are fish. But markets that buyers and sellers, right? Lots and lots of buyers and sellers. And we decide what to buy by looking at the products and looking at their prices or looking at the stock and the companies and its price. And we make decisions. Okay. Markets. A couple reminders here that what we're talking about are these markets where there's lots of buyers and lots of sellers. So many buyers and so many sellers that nobody can influence the market by themselves. Okay? So we're not talking about Google. We're not talking about Skippy. We're not talking about anything that we don't have lots and lots of buyers and lots of sellers. We need competition for these markets to work. Competition among the buyers and competition among the sellers. And for these markets to work, there has to be good information. There has to be enough knowledge that the buyers and the sellers know what they're getting. So it's not like the used car market where they tell you, you know, a grandma drove this car to church once a week and that was it. And then you buy it and you find out that it was rolled a couple times and it's been in 6 accidents and never had its oil changed. Okay? You have to understand what you're getting, what you're buying, and what you're selling. Nobody in this world sells a Picasso at a garage sale for $5 because they didn't know it was a Picasso. We call these perfectly competitive markets. Okay? Goes back, if you've had 102, if you had micro, then you know what perfect competition is. The supply and demand are for perfectly competitive markets. It doesn't mean that these graphs, this method, this model, isn't helpful in other kinds. Okay? We use this model to tell us what goes on in a monopoly, even though monopoly is hardly a competitive market. But the basic, when we say there's equilibrium, that's perfectly competitive. And then other forms of competition or lack of competition are going to bend the model, and we understand how that works. We need to talk about it. Okay, so if there's supply and demand, there must be demand and supply. So let's start by talking about demand. Demand has certain parts. Part number 1 is willing. To have a demand for something, you must be willing to buy it. So I have a demand for Metallica music. Or at least I'm willing to buy Metallica music. I'm willing to buy a Ferrari. I'm not willing to buy Barry Manilow songs. I'm not. Okay? So potentially I have a demand for the two things on the left-hand side of the screen. There's no potential for me to have a demand on the right side of the screen. Going with willing is able. So I have to be both willing and able. I'm willing and able to buy Metallica music, and I own it, lots of it. I'm willing to buy that Ferrari for the $1 million it would cost. I'm not able. I'm willing, but I'm not able. I'm able to buy Barry Manilow songs. I'm not willing. And then the third part of this is at the price. So if Metallica songs go up to $10 a piece, I'm not buying them for $10 a piece. If that Ferrari goes on sale for $25,000, I'm there. I'm both willing and able. If I go on Amazon to buy a Metallica song for 99 cents, and they offer me all of Barry Manilow's songs he's ever written for 99 cents, I'm still not buying it. Okay? So it's all about willing and able at a price. Willing and able at a price. So we can write that all out just to make sure and get some terminology going. We have these words, quantity demanded, not demand. Okay? Not demand. The quantity demanded is the amount of a good or service we're willing and able to purchase at a given price. So the quantity demanded is the amount that we're willing and able, right? Willing and able to purchase at a given price. So there's cans of stuff there. If those cans of stuff, if I go in and, there's some chili and it's 99 cents and I like that particular, I'm out of there. If I go in and I'm thinking, hey, maybe I'll get a can of turkey chili and make some whatever, and it's $10, $15, $20 for that one can, I'm not there, right? Willing and able to purchase at the given price. Quantity demanded. Okay. We need to learn 2 words of Latin. Those 2 words are ceteris paribus. Some people say caeteris paribus. You can do it either way, and then other people will be mad at you no matter which way you say it. I always say ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means all other things being equal. Now, what this means is that when we do these analyses, we need to change one thing at a time. Okay? If I think that my car is not driving as well as I can, or as it could, and I put new tires on and tune it up, and now it drives great, which one of those 2 things fixed the problem? I can't separate them out. What I should have done is done one of them. I should have gotten the car tuned up. Well, if that works, I'm done. I'm happy. If that doesn't work, then I fix the tires. Maybe it took, okay? But if I do 2 things at once, if I'm trying to see how well my car brakes, and I slam on the brakes and downshift at the same time, I'm not really isolating the brakes because I did something else. So we change one thing at a time. Okay? It's what your doctor does because practicing medicine, right? They don't actually know what's wrong with you. But they think they know what's wrong with you, so they change one thing at a time and see what happens. If they change 5 things at a time and put you on 3 drugs and they don't know what fixed the problem. You have to change one thing at a time. Ceteris paribus. So, we have the law of demand. Economists always walk around and start our phrases by saying, ceteris paribus. Okay? The law of demand says, ceteris paribus. In other words, nothing else changing. We change one thing at a time. The higher the price of a good, the smaller is the quantity demanded. So if we only change the price, we leave everything else about the good the same, and we just change the price. If we raise the price, the quantity demanded is smaller. If we lower the price, the quantity demanded is larger. In other words, consumers prefer low prices. Ceteris paribus. Consumers prefer low prices. That's the law of demand. Okay? Consumers would rather have low prices than high prices. But we say it funny, or you can throw the word inverse in there if you want. There's an inverse relationship between price of things and the quantity demanded. So the price of gasoline goes up, we'd prefer to buy less gasoline. Why? So part of this is what we call relative prices. It has nothing to do with your aunts and uncles. Relative prices. So here we have, and I use a lot of food examples, maybe because I'm hungry a lot, but I use a lot of food examples. So we're at In-N-Out Burger, right? The double-double is $3.25. The cheeseburger's $2.25. Is everybody with me on that? Double-double is $3.25. Cheeseburger, $2.25. So one double-double is equal to 1.44 cheeseburgers. Is that exciting? 325 divided by 225 is 1.44. So one double-double equals 1.44 cheeseburgers. That's the relative price. So if somebody says to you, what's the price of the double-double? You can say 325, or you can say 1.44 cheeseburgers. Yes. Now, hopefully you like the double-double twice as much as you like the cheeseburger. So 1.44 is a good deal when you like it twice as much. Okay? Now, suppose the double-double goes up to $4 and the cheeseburger is up to $2.50. So they're raising their prices. Let's suppose that they raise their prices. Double-double is now $4. Cheeseburger is now $2.50. Okay? Simple. What just happened? Well, take $4 and divide it by $2.50, and you get 1.6 cheeseburgers. Okay? So not only did both prices go up, but relatively speaking, right? The relative price is the price of one thing in terms of another. So relatively speaking, that double-double just got more expensive. It used to be less than 1.5 cheeseburgers to buy a double-double. Now it's more than 1.5 cheeseburgers to buy a double-double. So when double-double goes up to 4 and cheeseburger goes up to $2.50, they both went up in absolute price, but in relative price, the double-double went up more than the cheeseburger. And maybe now the cheeseburger is a better bargain than it was before. And some people are going to choose to buy cheeseburger instead of double-double. Okay? The cheeseburger is relatively cheaper than it was before. The double-double is relatively more expensive than it was before. All right. Two things happen here. One is what we call the substitution effect. When something becomes relatively more expensive, human beings, again, we like low prices. So if we like to go out and get a fancy steak at the steakhouse, but the price goes way up, maybe we substitute to a lower price steak. And so if we're big steak eaters, I'm not a big steak eater. I eat the chicken at Outback. I know that's sad. But if you believe in the steak at Morton's, and all of a sudden it's way, 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 way more expensive than it used to be, you're going to substitute toward Outback. If you go to Chipotle because you like tacos and you go eat the tacos at Chipotle and they get to be more expensive and Chipotle really raises the price, maybe you're at Del Taco or somewhere else and you can get a cheaper taco. Okay? Substitution effect. We move away from high prices and toward low prices. But something that's really important to understand, there is no difference between prices going up and your income going down. If the price of everything goes up 10%, that's the same as if your income went down 10%. Yes? Do we see that? If the price of everything I buy goes up by 10%, that's no different than if my income had fallen 10%. So when the price of gas goes up, I'm not only going to buy less gas, but maybe I go out to eat less. Maybe I turn up my thermostat to try to cut my power bill. I do other things because that increase in the price of gas has essentially lowered my income. So I adapt, I change what I do because there's both an income effect and a substitution effect. The price of gasoline goes up, I try to buy less gasoline. The price of gasoline goes up, that's the same as if my income went down. And not only am I going to buy less gasoline, but there's other things in the world I'm going to buy less of because my income has effectively gone down. Okay? Think about that. All right. How do we get a demand curve? Well, it's really simple, and I don't know why we even spend so much time on it, but we do. We have what's called a demand schedule, and all you do is you take a price. Okay, so uniforms cost $100. That's our price. We ask each superhero how many they're going to buy this year, and we get 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and 0. And we add it up and get 10. And that's how we do demand. Each price, we find out from each consumer how much they're going to buy at that price and add those up. Simple? Simple.